Oh, you know, it's 2030.
30.
Right, 2030.
Yeah, it's on the half hour.
My ear
Which
deer
is 1:30 Pacific.
My ear dealing. I can't hear anyone. Hold on.
Did your battery die? You should have
Snap,
your battery.
snap.
Oh no, I just had to get it in.
Clapping.
It was like falling out.
Cool.
Sorry, Beth.
Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle.
Yeah.
Good show, guys.
You don't have to lie.
How was Griffith with Mars Closest Approach?
That was wild.
I'm
let
sure.
me tell you.
Oh my goodness.
So,
work.
who needs sleep when you've got Mars all night?
Got Mars on the mind.
It was cool though, because we had Buzz Aldrin
Nice.
come up, and I had not been told that Buzz was going to be there. So that was really cool. It's like my third or fourth time being around him. So
That's so exciting. How many? There's like probably so many people that were there. It
Oh,
was like the entire hill coverage.
We had a lot of people, but it was a lot less than I was expecting. I think a
Really?
lot of people
Okay.
stayed home and watched the live stream instead.
Yeah.
With it. We also had some other people. I can't remember his name, but he's a writer on the Orville. And he wrote for Star
the
Trek.
Orville.
I can't remember his name.
Oh.
Why can't I remember his name?
Seth MacFarlane?
No,
No, I know who you're talking about because what's his face posted
He's-
about him,
yes.
and he came up to the.
he's always around up at Griffith
Yes.
for events and stuff, and he's such a nice guy. Also, we had Tim Russ, who played Tuvok.
he came back?
On that, yeah. Well, not only, okay, so a lot of people don't know this. Tim Russ, he is a hardcore amateur astronomer.
Yes.
During the show, when he was on Star Trek, he actually got interested in astronomy, and then he took off with that. So not only did he come up and say hello to us and let us interview him on air and everything with that, he had his own telescope there to allow people to look through it.
I love it.
Because
He's
that's why he
so
was
cool.
primarily there to show off Mars to folks.
And he's
So,
the nicest guy.
He is such a good
and if
guy.
you ask him about why he got into space, it's just the most inspiring story. You just want to sit by a fire and listen to him speak.
He's
It's really
such a
nice.
nice guy. So
Oh,
So,
was it?
bring on another chair.
yeah, I was actually gonna say I'm out of here because I'm going
out of
very
Oh, right,
far
you're going
away.
camping.
And I'm not gonna be here next week probably. So have fun, everybody.
If you can
because
deal
they're
with it.
ripping things out of my throat and sinus. So so that should be fun. So as I was saying
live this
today, I'd
summer.
much rather be a robot. Well, they're gonna go in and dig a little bit on Wednesday and get rid of the stuff.
Very nice.
So it's good. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'll
Taking
see
your
y'all
first
in
step.
2 weeks. So that's right. Head out or something. I don't know.
Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Safe travels and good luck.
Take Dad's chair if you like. I will sit
on up.
Do I need
Great.
in the weird chair. Do you want me here?
Do you want this one?
Oh, I didn't
Whichever
have a
one.
glass chair. I can share yours.
Whichever one.
Do I need to keep this?
If you want to listen to Mike,
Okay.
you probably want to keep that.
Boy, that's.
That's up to you.
I'm like a
You don't have to
Borg
listen to
now.
Mike.
I did. There it goes.
Mike, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask Chuck?
Hi.
Oh, hi. By the way,
I did want to
Jade.
ask
Excellent.
if there
Jade.
was any
Jade, nice to meet you.
if there was any connection that you had to the Constitution mock-up.
So Mike just asked you if there are any
Yeah.
links that you had to the Constitution. mock-up.
Constitution. Which one was that? What state was it in?
It was in Florida at least around the time of STS-135. They had it at the Kennedy Space Center, and it had a TDRS mock-up in the payload bay. And it was one of those that you could walk through it. It had one of those ramps that led up to the doorway for it. And of course, it was just a mock-up. I don't think it was any type of test article or anything like that.
Is that the one that was at the Astronaut Hall of Fame?
Maybe if it was Constitution.
I don't think its name was Constitution, the one at the Astronaut Hall of Fame.
Oh, isn't that called in the chat? Is it called Independence?
Is that the one? Are you talking about the one that moved to Houston?
They swapped a couple of them at one
I'm
point.
not sure.
The
I'm not sure.
So my understanding is that the one that was at the visitor center is the one that moved to Houston and is now parked on top of the SCA. And the other one that was at the Astronaut Hall of Fame, at least to my knowledge, is still on the shuttle launch facility awaiting transport to somewhere else.
Yeah, they did a big reshuffling there at the end of the program. Some of the crew compartment trainers, I think one was loaded into a Super Guppy, and I think It's at the Air Force Academy, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, I didn't even mention it, but in the next issue of Flight Training from the, it's a magazine, part of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, they did a spread about the resolution.
Nice.
And
cool.
they sent a photographer out to shoot me in front of Endeavour.
Oh, that's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And I saw Endeavour being built as a baby.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man. What
Me
was the
and-
most exciting part?
Well, me and the spanners, you know, I'm dangerous if I have a telephone. You know, I get, you know, all the, you know, like I said, all the material equipment and services donated to build the shuttle. So
Yeah.
I called down to Rockwell. It was Rockwell Palmdale at that point, and wanted to get some dimensions and so forth. So I think we're going to be on the other side of bulletproof glass from it, right? And they took us to a conference room and they kind of told us, you know, gave us a little presentation. And that's what I called the people in Span is spanners.
Okay.
And we had a Spanimal house at one point also.
Wow.
So they lead us through these doors into an area with a very low ceiling. And then I kind of motioned to somebody, hey, that's a main gear right there. And we look up and we were underneath the shuttle.
Wow.
But,
Wow.
and you know, I
No
said,
bulletproof glass.
no, and it was funny too, because you know how I said, you know, how hard can it be? It's just a structure, right? Well, we saw Endeavour laid out like the world's largest model. Its cargo bay doors were over there, and the tail's over there, and everybody's looking at me. All right, well, it's a little hard, you know. So it was wonderful to get to see it being built like that.
Wow, that's insane.
Special moment.
Especially, yeah, being so close too. Wow.
Yeah, and I have pictures, you know, it says don't touch
Yeah.
the inside of the cargo bay doors, and you know, I'm touching. And
Don't touch
Of course.
my hardware.
No.
I have a picture of me holding one of the handrails for one of the solar joints on the space station when it was
Oh,
at
wow.
the. They call it the SSPF, the Space Station Processing Facility. So
Wow.
you know, some of the modules are there before they're launched, and I got to see a lot of that. That was really fun.
Jeez, that's so neat to be like so close to the process of what ultimately, you know, goes out there. Because when they come back down, of course, we revere them rightly so as like these relics, as these, you know, kind of like treasures. So to be able to see it actually be made in the
Before it
beginning, like
happens,
that's
yeah.
surreal.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
question from Neuropilot in our Twitch chat. He asked if you would ever want to build an X-38C mock-up.
If I wanted to
Build one.
build
Yeah.
one, you know, it's funny. I was just talking with a friend recently, and I'm like, you know, I wonder if they have an Orion, you know, mock-up for the fire rescue team trainer. And my friends would have me committed if I if I were to build something like that again. No.
You're done? No more building?
No more trainers.
Right.
I want to get back to NASA as quickly as possible and be part of the program, of course.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Let's see if there's a question here, because there's so many.
Well, let's see. I see.
Ooh.
Yeah, I see here. Citizen 1933
Do it.
asks, "Would you be interested in working with private space companies like Blue Origin or Virgin Galactic in the future?"
I wouldn't rule it out, but I'm not much of a capitalist, I'm afraid.
Oh, I understand.
I'm very idealistic and want to be part of the,
Well,
you know, the
speaking
exploration.
of non-capitalist places, Morton OG Katrin Hansen OG Brandt on YouTube asks, have you seen a picture of the USSR's space shuttle rotting away in a hangar? How sad is that?
Have I seen
The
that?
USSR space
Oh
shuttle.
yes, I did see that image. Yeah, Baran. Yeah, terrible. Just it's sad, these things. But you know, it's like the Endurance, the ship. You know, I mean, it's not the ship itself that needs to be treasured. It's the journey that ship went on,
Yep.
and the legacy of that vehicle or whatever. Yeah, yeah. So you know, don't be sad.
What kind of legacy do you think that the resolution leaves behind?
Well, I want it. If they make the movie and it raises the awareness of the public as to what's been going on with you know, how frustrating the program has been to have every new administration come in and cancel everything that's being done. And if we get NASA in the hands of a decadal survey, that would be a tremendously beneficial legacy for the resolution to have.
Do you have like
Yeah.
plans of going international with it? Would you want to? Would you want to go international with the movie?
With the film.
With the film? Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it would be. Yeah.
Did you have
yeah.
any ideas for that, or you were thinking of just sticking with Hollywood, as you were saying, from NASA to Hollywood? So
No,
that,
I
like
want
that
them
idea, but
to market it to other audiences. And the funny thing
Yeah.
is, I've been to 23 countries, and my mother's always, "Why are you exploring the world?" I'm like, "Well, I can't go off and explore other worlds until I've explored my own." I said.
yeah,
That's my
Exactly.
excuse, anyway.
that's a great way to look at it.
But people in other countries eat NASA up.
Exactly.
They love it. They love the space program, our space program.
Absolutely.
But the people in our country are just kind of,
Kind of like lackadaisical about it. Yeah.
Don't get it.
Exactly, and that's so fascinating you bring that up, because it just goes to show you that when it comes to topics like space and astronomy, it truly is. It's not separated by borders. It's a human thing. It doesn't matter where you're
Yeah,
from. Everybody
absolutely.
looks up at some point and has that kind of insightful experience. Like, is there something out there? I want to know what's out there. And like you said, I'm sure there's this fascination not only with NASA, but some of the other space agencies around the world, just because they're literally doing what humans have been kind of fantasizing about for millennia. So
Since we walked.
exactly.
course.
It's such an innate, kind of part of the human experience.
Well, two interesting things, and they're in opposite directions too, is looking down on the Earth, of course. Most of the astronauts say that the thing that strikes them the most is there are no borders.
Exactly.
We're all one Earth.
Pale blue dot. Yeah.
And in the other direction, one of the problems I think we're facing is that we have so much light pollution that we can't see the stars anymore.
100%. Exactly. And I've read there's been a few, I don't know if they are actual studies, but there's been a lot of analyses done on the fact that today's kids, today's youth, they do not see the same skies as, even our parents or grandparents used to see, where you'd go outside and it's kind of like, so the first time I ever saw a real night sky, I was 22. I'm sorry
Wow.
it took so long, but I was actually in Pismo Beach. Was not
yeah.
expecting it to get so dark, and it's awe-inspiring. It's going to sound a little dramatic, but it really is like paradigm shifting.
It is.
So if you can imagine, as a youth being raised, always looking at that, of course you'd have this disposition towards, exploration of space. But, just kind of like you said, the light pollution, it's hard to bring it back down to Earth when it's like you could maybe see 2 stars or 3 on a good day.
Well, I grew up in a 3-stoplight town in the forest in Michigan, so we had stars. But, I'd been away from it for a while, and I was in a place not that long ago. It was called Star Prairie, Wisconsin.
Aw.
And we were at this friend's house, and we were having a dinner party, and it was just such a lovely day. And I walked out after it had gotten dark, and I was not prepared. And I looked up,
It just
and
knocks you on your feet.
it was staggering. And I'm calling everybody outside. I'm like, oh my gosh. And yes,
Exactly.
and I like the way you put it, paradigm shifting.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you first see that arm of the Milky Way, that just kind of looks like it just splashed across the sky.
Right.
You go to Joshua Tree. I mean, again, I'm kind of speaking from a very encapsulated experience. If you grew up in Southern California, chances are you didn't see a lot of stars growing up. I know there's still some more rural areas out there where it's still beautiful, but I mean, yeah, it's just it just takes you back to that innate human, fascination with what's out there.
Well, and it's interesting. What do we do to correct this? And there are movements in various areas to try to use different kinds of lighting, less lighting, and that's better for energy consumption, and it's better all the way around, really.
I have a question for you. You were mentioning earlier that people outside of the U.S. seem to be more infatuated with NASA than we are in the U.S. I actually disagree with that, but I want to bring up a question because I see something in the chat from Helio Pausing. They say, NASA shares everything. That is so important. So I wanted to ask you, why do you think it is that in our country then, if we're not so aware of what NASA's doing, if NASA's sharing all this wonderful information online, what do you think is causing this backup from people to actually be researching it themselves? What do you think it's causing people to not actually find this stuff online when it's already there? NASA's sharing all their information on the internet.
Well,
so what do you think that is?
NASA shares, it's public domain.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, NASA is part of the executive branch of the federal government and cannot actively promote itself. It has to rely on the president and to do that. So they're passive, basically. You know, that you can go to NASA's website and get all the information that you want, but NASA can't really go out there too much. They do a little bit. I was on a reservation in South Dakota, and there's apparently a bus that can go around that gives like mobile presentations to various schools, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I've seen that before.
But yeah, they can't, like, there are no NASA commercials, you'll notice.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's not
But there
advertising.
are Navy, Air Force, Marines commercials. So I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
Do you
Well, I
think
do, but-
it would be a good idea
Say.
to have those commercials? Do
I
you
think that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
There was a Lockheed commercial back in the day. Don't want to date myself. This was during Mir, the Russian space station. And it was so dramatic. You got to look it up. It's on YouTube, and it's like right now, miles above the Earth, experiments are being conducted that could cure diseases and give us better metal alloys, and exploration is going on right now. And the whole during this monologue, there's a space station going over you as you're over the Earth, and then you see the Russian symbol on the bottom, and then it says, "Shouldn't we be there too?"
Ooh, right
wow.
in the
It
field.
was fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big
So
drive.
yes,
Exactly.
Why do you think it is that even commercial space agencies haven't done that? Because, I mean, I understand federal, but with commercial space agencies, is there a reason you think that they actually didn't do
they will.
advertising?
They
will.
will. Virgin Galactic, I guarantee you, will start having
We'll start
commercials.
doing
eventually.
Exactly. Once it
commercials.
gets, because I think right now it's a matter of audiences and target markets. Like, who are they actually trying to reach?
Right.
Now, a lot of these privatized space companies, they're looking more towards like investors and like seed funders and different things like that. When it comes to NASA, raising awareness, it's not just for that initial capital. It's more for like we were talking about, like awareness and enthusiasm, because they are a government-funded entity. That means that it's our tax dollars going there. So there's a relevance to appeal to us, in the immediate. But that's why I like this comment from Johnny Spacer.
Yeah, I was about to do that.
They
one,
say
too.
promoting NASA is up to us, and that's very true on multiple levels. I mean, it's one of the reasons that we exist as a show, is to bring the awesome wonders of space to the public, because like you said, I mean, whether it's a budgetary issue or a red tape issue, NASA isn't exactly able to go out there and tell all the amazing stories it has.
Have you? There was this thing, a penny for NASA. Have you seen this website?
A penny for NASA.
Yeah.
No, actually.
Yeah, we should. They're trying to boost NASA up to a penny, which is 1% of the tax dollar. NASA gets half of 1% right now. And I did want to mention during the show about Elon and his Tesla car that's in space. NASA has 3 cars that are still on the moon that they put there in the very early 70s. And I don't want us to forget that.
Turning it into
Three-
a parking lot. I
3
see.
fantastic
Someone
rovers.
should
in
make a website, carsinspace.com.
Yeah.
Cars in space is currently 4.
Cars in space.
Yeah.
Do you count the rovers? No, they're not, because they won't.
They're not
No.
technically.
Until a Mars astronaut goes and rides on
Although
one.
it would be
Yeah,
kind of
that's
funny
true,
to
that's
take
true.
all of the rovers that are currently on missions right now and then make a giant a used car commercial out of it, especially the ones
I
that aren't
like
in
that.
use anymore.
Yeah.
Superpod.
So
it happen.
these cars that are on the moon, then, do you think that do you think that we'll actually be going to the moon soon, or do you think that Mars is going to be first?
Well, in my movie screenplay, there's one. I had gotten a brochure for the Apollo 17 launch, and it was the last of the Apollo missions and the first to launch at night. And I snuck downstairs to watch it and turned it on, and my dad came out and was very cool about it and says, "Oh, all right," because he knew how I was at that point.
Yeah.
And we're in the dark watching this last launch, and I asked him, "Dad, we'll be going back to the moon soon, won't we?" And I'm sure we will, son. And that was, a long time ago.
Yeah.
Closing in on 50 years. Yeah. So, not to date myself, but
Yeah. So now, do you think that we are then eventually going to go soon?
I hope so. I
So do you
mean,
think
we
that-
should have long time ago. We
should
could have been on
We
Mars
should
by
have.
now. And
Yeah.
one of the interesting things is when I worked with the Lunar Mars office and it was Planet Surface Systems, we were talking about, I asked the question, like, what are we going to do about like the Apollo 11 landing site? Because there's two kinds of bases that you have. You have an expeditionary mission, which is like what Apollo was, where you go and do science and you come back. And then there's evolutionary missions where you go and you bring something with you. And you were talking about robots setting things up. You don't even need robots. You really just bring, like send the stuff unmanned and let them do their things, which so it's sort of robotic. And then the humans come. And then the next group brings something else, another part of the hab, and then you assemble the space. That's an evolutionary mission. And we were going to do that fairly close to where Surveyor landed and the Apollo 11 landing site. And I said, well, you don't want to really disturb. Do we want to disturb those footprints? I don't think so. I think we should velvet rope that off, And it will be kind of like an international monument.
Museum, yeah, interplanetary monuments.
That's
yeah,
right. That's right.
I think that's a really great idea. And then as far as what's on there, you said that there's cars on there. So what do you think we should be doing with those when we actually go back to the lunar surface?
Oh, I don't know.
Because they might be.
One should probably come back.
Give them a car.
Oh, really? Come back?
Yeah.
Put it in a BFR and ship it back.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
To tour on the Earth, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Those are interesting questions that I hope we get to get faced with sooner
That we have
rather than later.
the privilege to answer.
Yeah.
So actually, good point. Paul Warlow on YouTube brought up, did Chuck get asked the 4 questions?
I think we were running a bit long on time, so we skipped them, but let's ask them now.
I think so, yeah.
So, Chuck, we have 4 questions that we like to wrap up every interview with.
Okay.
So whatever comes to mind, they're really simple. So the first one, I believe, is what is your favorite space mission of all time? It can be in the past, the present, or the future.
I would say, I think I was enamored by the Apollo-Soyuz test project. I had the brochure, sent to
Mike
me
is like,
beforehand, and it was while the Cold War was still going on, and we were doing it in peace, and that was so meaningful to me. So I would pick that as the human spaceflight mission, and the unmanned mission, I would say Viking 1. I thought that was a cool lander.
Yeah, absolutely.
That leads very well into the next question, which is human or robot exploration of the cosmos?
Both, of course. JPL is wonderful with the unmanned missions, and can't wait to see what's inside Europa. So that's a logical sequence, like you were saying with robots. The robots go out first, and then NASA goes out, and then commercial, and then private citizens and so forth. So both are logical and part of the whole.
Very cool. And I guess that goes into, we spoke a little bit earlier, but the moon or Mars? Which one do you think should be first?
The moon has to be first.
The moon has to be first?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's 3 days away instead of 6 months away, and you practice close, and it's laid out like a lesson plan. So, of course, moon first.
I love it, love it. And then the last one is why space?
Mankind, humans, just need to explore. We need to answer the big questions. We need to ask the big questions. And there's so many reasons. Mission to planet Earth at NASA, like looking back at the Earth and learning about other ecosystems, hopefully someday, is we're going to learn about ourselves. And it inspires, and it's the reason for being almost,
Mm-hmm. That's so good. That's so good. Well, that was a great answer. I'm sure a lot of us 100% agree with you on that one. But
Good.
Yeah, well, thank you for everything. It's just been so insightful having you on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
a pleasure.
And keep us updated with how your movie's going, and
Yes.
and
I hear all about the film.
And it's coming. There's an article about the resolution coming out. I don't know if I mentioned this in Flight Training Magazine, part of the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association's. I think it's monthly magazine.
Wow.
So that'll be really interesting. They
Congrats.
shot me in front of Endeavour. So it was kind of full circle almost for me and Endeavour.
Nice. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, start Endeavor.
Before and after. There you
Not
go.
really ending on Endeavor, but continuing,
There
with
you go.
Endeavor.
Right.
That's amazing. Wow. Well, congrats on that. I'll look that up later.
And the Resolution, I didn't mention this,
Yeah.
was the runner-up name after Endeavour. It's Cook's second ship of exploration in the South Pacific. And it couldn't be a better name.
I was going to ask
Yeah.
about that actually.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Wow.
Cool.
That's really awesome. That's so cool. Awesome.
And it'll be interesting to see what spacecraft gets the name next. Like,
Yeah.
will it be Orion or will it be a Dragon? Or, what will it be?
Exactly.
And I'm Scorpio. Not that I believe in that, but I'm a Scorpio sign, but I'm also the Chinese dragon. So I like the dragon.
cool.
So you're a dragon capsule person.
There you go.
Very cool. Very cool. Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
I don't
how
know
do
about
we
you
feel?
guys. I'm hungry, so
I'm
I think we
definitely-
should probably wrap at this point. Mike, did you have anything left to add?
No, I don't think so. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your experiences with us. This has been very interesting.
Cool. All right, Mike, I think we need you to stick around so we can wrap up and talk about Launch Minute and stuff. But we're going to say goodbye to you guys. And don't forget, next week is a science episode as well. So tune in, Science at 1800 and Space at 2030 UTC.
Yep.
I think
All
I reversed
Other way
those two.
around.
Yeah. Cool. Anyway,
Space,
numbers.
science
I
is
need
after.
food. All right. Thank you
know
so
what
much,
it
guys.
is.
See you next week.